Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Marriage the Real Talk. Your girl Amber here. I'm super excited that you are going to take these next few moments to be with me and our awesome guest today. If you do not know me, my name is Amber Mabry. I am a Columbus native. OHIO, yeah, that. And I am so excited because this platform that I've had the privilege of creating called Marriage Real Talk is growing every single day, every single week. We have new members coming in to learn the ins and outs of what it takes to really do this thing called life and our relationship journey. So I do want to be honest to say, although it's called Marriage Real Talk, it's for singles, divorced, widows, separated. Our community is for everyone. Why? Because everyone's on a journey. Everyone has an experience, and in my opinion, a story to share and for us to grow from. So if you don't know about Marriage Real Talk and you're finding this somewhere on the World Wide Web, we invite you to learn a little bit more about us by going to facebook.com/groups/Marriage Real Talk. And I'll say that again, facebook.com/groups/Marriage Real Talk. For today, we're going to get right into our conversation because I have so many questions I want to ask our guest today. She is a phenomenal woman full of purpose. I have had the privilege of meeting her just, a couple months ago at an event here in Columbus, Ohio called Made for More. And at this event specifically, she was sharing the reel of her testimony. And so afterward, I just felt compelled. I have to go talk to her. I have to learn more about where she's at in this point in her life, as well as how her past has brought her up to this point. And so today I have Tara Alston here, and she is going to give us the ins and outs, at least in her experience of overcoming trauma and domestic abuse. Tara, thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to go ahead and get this party started. How are you doing today? You're muted. Let me help you out. Let me see. Yeah, unmute your mic. Can you hear me?
There we go.
There you go. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. And of course, we've been working behind the scenes on different things. I do appreciate your time. Time is that one resource we never, ever get back. So I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today as we go into a real conversation, a touchy conversation, but something that I know everyone who watches live or on a replay will be able to take some level of value from. So let's just dive right into it. The topic itself already says a lot: overcoming domestic abuse and trauma. Let's just have you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. As you said, I'm Tara Alston. I am 47 years old and live in the Columbus, Ohio area. Lived here since I was about 14. I birthed 3 sons and love many more people just as my own. But my 3 boys are 15, 27, and 28. And my oldest just got married about almost 2 weeks ago.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So that's exciting. We've had an exciting couple weeks. I've worked for the state of Ohio for about 19 years. And then I started my business, Yet Still I Stand LLC, last year.
Awesome. You got your hands tied with so many different things, and weddings and grown kids, adult kids. I have 2 little kids. You're on the other spectrum of it, but I'm sure it's just as busy. We're going to go to the next question. Give us a little insight about your childhood, because I know in Real Talk in our community, we're always talking about how our childhood affects our adulthood and all the ins and outs of what we learn. Sometimes we have to go back to the foundation where it started. So give us a little insight, if you can, in regards to what was it like for you as a child growing up? Anything that we should know before we get into more of the details of our conversation?
Okay. I was born in California. My parents were actually divorced when I was about 3, and my mom remarried, not having any idea what we'd be facing. due to that relationship. But I had went through different forms of abuse as a child, pretty much any form that you can imagine. So I started experiencing sexual abuse at the age of 5. And I also experienced abuse such as emotional abuse, and at times physical abuse. I don't really remember exactly when those two forms of abuse began, but that is the gist of what I experienced as a child. So I experienced that, um, like I said, from the time that I was 5, and I knew that it didn't feel right and that it wasn't something that I liked. I don't know that I knew it was abuse per se until probably like late elementary school.
Wow.
And then on one hand, I lived like a childhood that was full of secrets because, as in most cases, the abuser wants you to keep everything a secret and not share that information. So I lived a life of secrets and trauma and was sad and, really scared and had a lot of issues from all of that. And as you can imagine, with that type of abuse and growing up with that through the years, that was a lot of stress that I carried around. And I began to do things such as self harm, which is not uncommon for children who are experiencing that type of abuse, because really it's like an outlet. So the emotional abuse can seem so um, overpowering or overbearing that that little bit of um, physical pain is
Mm-hmm.
almost like a release. So I didn't do a lot of that, but I did experience some of that as well. But then on the other hand, as I was growing up, I was very involved in the church and had a lot of wonderful experiences and opportunities, um, spiritually. So God made himself very real to me when I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved worship. And I remember, being young and sitting there with my little Bible. I could barely read, but I had my little Bible and a little Christian magazine. I can't remember what it was called, but I would be sitting there doing my own form of Bible study and just remember the peace that God let me feel, even in the midst of all that I was experiencing. And I truly believe that my relationship with Him is what kept me.
Wow. That is so powerful. So you said this started at age 5, like 5, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
Was this, and if these questions are somewhat too specific or too detailed, just let me know. But I know commonly abuse at young ages, particularly comes at the hand of family members. Would you say that that was your case?
Yes.
Wow.
It was a family member. And I did experience all those forms of abuse due to this family member, and it had also experienced exploitation through child sexual abuse material. So it was a very traumatic situation, but again, very difficult just because I had to keep everything a secret. So I couldn't even get the help that may have been available to me because of that.
Wow. And so you talk about these secrets. Was that something that just continued until a certain age? And then you decided, this shouldn't be a secret? Tell us about that.
There was a couple of opportunities for me to share a little bit of information, but I didn't feel comfortable sharing it all. So I did not get help until after I left home.
Wow. Okay. And what age was that when you
I
left?
was 17.
Okay. Wow. So basically from 5 to 17, you kind of held everything in?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I want to pause, but I'll keep going. You talked about when you first experienced abuse. My next question is, what helped you manage now? And I'm not just saying only as a child, but I'm imagining from 5-year-old to 17. There's so many changes that happen just mentally as a female growing from, childhood to puberty to adulthood, trying to figure out your identity, all these things. Um, Tell us a little bit about what your transitional years were like, and then also what helped you manage. Not maybe even just pain, anger, or frustration, but just what helped
Right.
you manage.
Well, I already gave the first piece of what helped me manage, and that was my relationship that I had and still have with God. So that was my number one. I think that made all the difference in the world for me. I also always had people in my life who were a support, even if they didn't know what all they were supporting.
Mhm.
So, and it wasn't the same people all throughout my life. There could be people who switched up, but God always had somebody or some buddies in my corner, like really encouraging me and helping me, and could see things in me that I couldn't see for myself. Because as you can imagine, when you are growing up in that situation, like you said, in the formative years, like it impacted everything. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what my interests were, because when you're dealing with that much trauma at that age, you don't get to explore those things. So, in essence, when you're dealing with a long-term trauma like that,
Mhm.
they really do steal your childhood from you. That's not just a statement that people like to make. It's a situation to where you have that robbed of you, and you are then trying to play catch up as you're going through your healing process.
Wow.
But really just having a strong foundation with God, having people in my life that could see things about myself that I couldn't see, because I was very shy and very self-conscious.
Mhm.
I was one of those people that if you asked me to stand up in front of the class, even just to go sharpen my pencil, that was going to be a problem. I was
Oh,
terrified. I didn't want
wow.
people to look at me, don't talk to me,
Mhm.
don't ask my name, just because, when you're going through that type of abuse, the emotional part of the abuse is a lot of times they'll try to tell you that you're stupid and you're never going to amount to anything and all these things. So you're scared that as people are around you, or trying to get to know you, that they're going to think the same thing.
Wow.
Um, so it was a situation to where I was really closed off, except for maybe the couple people that would be close to me at that point in my lifetime.
Wow. Whew, girl, you don't look like, and I tell her this all the time, but she does not look like anything she has been through. We haven't got to the meat of this conversation, so let me speed up. I do want to ask really quickly, how did your experiences affect your ability to trust? So I can tell that from what you're sharing, you were insecure. There were just that lack of identity.
Mhm.
You said stripped childhood, so to speak. Talk about that trust piece. How did that affect your ability to trust people?
So, for most people, how it impacts them is that they have a difficult time trusting people. I was a little bit odd in that whole process. I
Okay.
think just my desire to be loved and accepted overpowered even sometimes common sense
Mm,
when it came to trusting people. So I was overly trusting. And honestly, that's still something that I can battle some today, not nearly the extent that I did, but just making sure that I don't ignore things that are important, just because of the fact that, you want to believe that everybody has good intent, because everybody does not. And you have to be careful about who you allow in your circle.
mm. Wow. So that is interesting. You kind of the flip side. And so let's even talk a little bit about like up to after the childhood, you dated, you did get married, right?
I did.
And then you end up in an abusive situation as an adult. Talk to us a little bit about how that came about. You don't have to give a lot of details, but how that came about in your experience as an adult. Now, kind of in some ways, I would imagine reliving this cycle of trauma, hurt, pain, abuse, neglect. Talk to us a little bit about that. What was that like?
Um, I was no different than many who grow up in abuse. A lot of times you go from abuse to abuse. I was not technically an adult when I met
Okay.
my first husband. So I was 17 when I left, and I met him just a couple months after.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
he took advantage of the vulnerabilities for sure. He was 5 years older and had what I know now. I didn't know at that time, but he had an abusive history of being violent. He had been married prior to and had been violent with her as well. And so I went from abuse right into abuse. I did not have any time to heal or grow or learn about myself, nothing. Um, and I quickly became pregnant because, as I shared, I was somebody who really wanted to be loved. Everybody has that need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would quickly became pregnant, and that is when the physical abuse began. He had not been nice to me prior to that, but some of that was things that I was used to hearing. But the physical abuse began when I became pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And then, the things that I heard as a kid, I was hearing from him. It might not be the same exact words, but just very demeaning and very cruel. And so there was emotional abuse going on there. The physical abuse, I was, beaten often, strangled. Would be drugged by my hair, you name it. I've probably endured a lot of that. I also dealt with financial abuse. He controlled all of the money, all the way down to if somebody sent me birthday money. Um, the emotional abuse, we touched on that. And then I endured sexual abuse with him as well. I've been raped at gunpoint and raped while being strangled. So, there was a ton of trauma in that situation as well, that I had experienced. So,
Wow. How do you even breathe past that? Like that is a pause moment. Like, oh my goodness. How did you escape? How did you find safety? What was your place from, okay, childhood abuse? And if you're just joining, welcome. And so from 5 to 17, you've experienced all this secretly. You leave home, meet a gentleman, get pregnant, you're getting abused. I'm assuming at this point, are you opening up to share this with anyone, or are you now in a new circle or bubble of secrecy with a new person?
no, I was sharing with a close group of people at that point, some of the stuff that I was experiencing there. And, I have a praying mother. So there were many, many times where she would wake up praying for me, not knowing
No.
exactly what I was dealing with at that very moment. So yes, I had a great support system during that process that ultimately was how I got help getting out. I had tried to leave multiple times, but he would find us. Um, he'd threaten me, and then threaten the people that were helping. So it was a situation to where then I'd start feeling like I didn't want to cause somebody else to go through anything. So then you get scared, like bringing people into that fold. But
Mm.
um, what it came down to was he ended up hurting my boys. They were 1 and 2, and he hurt them, and Mama Bear came out. So it didn't matter at that point whether I died trying, but I was going to get out and get my boys out, and get to safety. So I left. I found an opportunity to leave and was able to leave with my boys and a diaper bag and the clothes on our back in the car. And so that wasn't the end for us. We still dealt with a lot of harassment, and the judicial system wasn't easy. Um, and so it was a situation that didn't stop as soon as you leave, of course. But it was the beginning of my way to safety.
Wow. And so you packed the kids up, you left. The harassment continued. How are you coping as a mother? Like, how are you staying strong for your children as a mother going through this?
I was able to, because they were so young, I was able to protect them from a lot of that trauma, um, so that they didn't have to be exposed. And it was important to me that they had an opportunity to grow up feeling safe and secure. So I ensured that they felt very little of anything that I could protect them from overhearing or seeing or dealing with. I did that.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Um, Give us some advice if you can, because now, talk to us. And I'll even pivot here. Tell us a little bit how this story has segued into what you provide for others now. And then I'll ask for some advice from that angle to those who may be currently experiencing abuse. So if you can tell us a little bit more, I guess, about Yet Still I Stand, and what you're aiming to do there.
So I started the business last year. It's a business / ministry. I know that that's not really how that works, but I use the platform in order to be able to help anybody that I possibly can. So it's a situation to where I do share my story in an effort to provide encouragement, provide useful information, tips, resources, in an effort to encourage others who may be going through a very difficult time as well. May not be the same exact things that I have dealt with, could be something completely different, but in dealing with traumas and hardships and challenge and hurt, like a lot of resources and information is useful and can cross those boundaries. So I provide information while giving my story. I also provide one-on-one coaching or consulting for those who are interested in doing that. I hold group workshops and also do some formal training on trauma-based information.
Okay. And so the next question I wanted to ask you then, straight from that, is give us some advice for those who may be currently experiencing abuse, or it's been in the past, but they still need help. Any advice, anything you've learned?
Yes. The first thing that I would want to say is that you are worth it. You're worth it. You are valuable. You are special. Um, it's always difficult to leave a situation and for there to be some sort of change that you have to put in motion. So it's not that it's easy, but it is definitely worth it. We aren't meant to live in that type of environment. We are to be valued. We were created with purpose. We're created uniquely, so we don't even need to be comparing like our situation to another to determine if it's bad enough to leave. It's We need to make sure that we are given the opportunity to ourselves to thrive and grow and follow our passions, and see what all we can do in this life, not just see what we can deal with and what we can handle that may be dished out to us. So that's the biggest thing that I want to share is just knowing your worth and knowing that you are worth the work that it takes to find safety and to live in peace and live in joy and be able to thrive. And secondly, I would like you to know that you are not alone. There is a community and so many people who care about you and want to be there for you and walk the journey with you so that you're not doing it alone. And there are a lot of resources. There are barriers and things that people, when they're thinking about leaving, that they're thinking, how am I going to do this? Or how am I going to get this in order to survive? And there are so many resources available that we can point you to, so that you don't have those barriers stopping you from moving forward.
So good, so good. And what about those who may have young people that have experienced abuse? Any indications or anything that you think now looking back, if someone was paying attention, or questions that could be asked to help, help someone who wants to say something, but they're in that place of secrecy? Anything on that?
I think it's important that we start talking to our young people at a very young age, not just about the hard subjects, but about everything, not everything, but age appropriate things, so that you've already built up a relationship with them, because it's nearly impossible if you have not built up that relationship and that trust with the young person,
Yeah.
then to walk in and then be in the midst of a traumatic situation and they're just going to open up. So number one, I think that, for our kids or the young people in our lives, it's important that we're building those relationships at a young age, from little things to big things, so that they know that you are a safe person and they know what it feels like to talk to you.
Mhm.
And secondly, I think it's really important for us to watch if there are any changes in behavior or demeanor, because sometimes the kids are so young that they can't talk about it. But if you notice any changes, that would be a red flag that I would watch for and be really investigating and making sure that there's not something going on. And also, I'm a big proponent of making sure that we do not force our children to have physical contact with people. I know that that can be funny depending on family members and things like that, but oftentimes the abusers are those that are in our close circle. And if a child does not want to go up and give so and so a hug and a kiss,
Talk about it.
yeah, they should not be forced to do so, because they need to know from the time that they're young that they have control over who does what to their body.
That's good.
So that would be, the top 3 things that I would state.
So good. And so I'm gonna jump back to a direct question to you. How has going through trauma affected you mentally and spiritually? And then maybe any takeaways from that?
So mentally, it was a major process, because you have to undo everything that was done before you can start building on the right things. So there was a lot of things that I had to stop believing about myself, or what I could do, in order to then be able to start looking into the things that I am, or I can do. So mentally, it can be quite a process, and it takes some time, just because trauma impacts your brain. So it impacts everything, but it impacts even your brain. So the neural networks in your brain will change as a result of traumatic experiences. And so if you go through long periods of trauma and have those impacting you, that can do a lot of, I use the word damage loosely, but it does a lot of changes that you'll never get it back to the original state.
Wow.
But what is really, really cool with how we're designed is the fact that healing does the same thing.
Yeah.
So as you're giving opportunities for healing and growth, your brain starts forming the new neural networks, based on those new experiences that you're having. So it's possible and it's amazing. And there's so much hope. A lot of times people think that there are things that can't be changed. No, that's not true. You are able to change these things in your life with the right support, the right environment, and my belief in God. But you have to give yourself that opportunity. And spiritually, I just really believe that from the beginning of my childhood experience with God, that's what carried me through. I went through periods of time of questioning God. Why did this happen? But thankfully, I don't even think that that's bad. I think that that's good, because when you start questioning is when you get answers. So he only made himself more real to me through that whole process.
Wow. Okay. So, and I wanted to go down that path, but I'll just go this route because I know you talk about healing, and you are a great example and a testament of hope for somebody somewhere, in my opinion, right now, of what that can look like, having gone through so much. Tell us a little bit about the different things that has helped you through your healing journey. What type of support? So I know prayer. You sound like you had your personal group. If there's any other things that helped you to heal over time, that's what I'm asking.
Something that I do believe is important to check out, and some people are ready for it and some people aren't. And I think it's important to know when you're ready. But seeking the help of a professional, I think, is important. And that is because they have access and understanding of so many tools that the everyday person isn't going to know. And they're tools that you can put into practice in your life that helps you through that healing journey and helps change thought processes and helps change behavior, so that you're able to heal and grow. Because if you don't put yourself in a better environment and a better mental state, you can't grow. That stunts your growth. And so having a professional kind of help walk you through that process is great.
Mhm.
There are also things such as support groups so that you don't feel alone. Because I think one of the biggest issues when you're going through these traumatic events is feeling like you're all by yourself with what you're feeling and what you're going through. And there are so many people, like I said, they may not go through the exact same thing, but they may have gone through similar situations or situations that you can still tie things together, that help provide hope
Yeah,
and just allow you to be able to talk through different things.
very good. And I will try to come back and make note in our comments in our Facebook community. Very good. Question I wanted to ask, and I'm sure other people have this question. Do you experience setbacks? I'm sorry, flashbacks even now that I guess try to set you back? I didn't mean to say
Right.
that, but that could probably try to set you back. If yes, how do you overcome them? By the way, I know we are a little bit over 30 minutes, but I got two more questions after this. So let's squeeze them in. Any flashbacks that try to set you back, and how do you overcome?
Flashbacks, yes, I have definitely experienced those. And I think it can be common with a lot of people who have experienced traumatic experiences.
Mm,
Um, One of the first things that I do is ensure that I am safe if I'm having some sort of flashback, and
mhm,
that there's nothing happening that I need to take note of that may be triggering me because maybe I'm not exactly safe.
mhm.
So that's my first step, making sure that it is just a flashback and not something that's actually triggering. Next, I pray because
Yeah,
I know that I get peace of mind as I pray. And so that's always what I'm doing while I'm going through the rest of these processes. But I'll talk myself through the situation as well. So there's something called grounding techniques that are really important about they help bring you to the present, rather than whatever may be trying to take you to the past.
hmm,
Um, and it's thinking about what are 5 things that I can see right now, or hear or touch. You go through all of your senses, and it brings you to the right here and right now, and it has a calming effect on your body. So that's something that I'll put into play. I also then, once I have determined that I am safe and I'm just needing to work through this process, I will start focusing on something positive rather than sitting there and continuing to think about whatever is trying to flash through my head. Um, and then, if needed, also talk to somebody.
that's very good. Very good. So you have a couple different, I guess, tools
Yes.
that you use: prayer, talk to somebody, basically check yourself and make sure, hey, I'm good. Very good. Another quick question: what do you suggest to people who have experienced trauma? Anything you suggest they do before starting a new relationship with someone else? Because sometimes that can, domino effect into something else. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. I suggest first taking some time for yourself. And I don't feel like anybody can tell you what that time frame should be, because a lot of people are going through the process of grieving and healing and all of that even before something ends. They can start that process. So I think it's important that we're not judging how long people are taking, but it's important to take time for yourself so that you can learn about you and what you like and what you don't like and what your goals and dreams are, and take some time to plan out what you would like to see happen in your future. And when it is a time that you may be talking to someone else or starting to date, I think it's important that you take note of your goals and of your dreams and what you want your future to look like, what you want your day to day to look like, um, and make sure that you're writing out the different characteristics that would be important to you. And as you're talking to somebody new, really seems silly, but it's not. Check your list and make sure that you are not disregarding something that's big. Um, Another thing that I think was an issue for me is dismissing red flags. Um, because I would be like, I don't want to hold somebody else accountable for something that that I went through in the past. And so anytime I felt like a check, I would say that's just because I've experienced this, and there goes my trusting too much and wanting to give somebody the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So making sure that you don't dismiss red flags.
Hold on, pause. I know we're going over, but you got to give us some of those red flags. Go for it. We're going to do popcorn style red flags and go.
I think some of the red flags would be those things that if they're not in line with what you see for your future and what you want for a family and what you want for your goals and your passions and your dreams, then that's a huge red flag. Don't dismiss that and just think, oh, it's all going to work out because they love me.
It's going to get better. No, it's
not. I think it's important to get counsel. Just because there are things that sometimes we dismiss just being, love can make things a little blurry sometimes if you're and so making sure that you get good counsel. Protecting your heart is huge. You're not a bad person for standing up for yourself and protecting your heart. And so many times those of us who have gone through trauma either go from one end to where you can be hard-hearted and try to be hard and not let anybody too close, or you go the other end to where you keep forgiving and keep doing and keep allowing, because you don't want to be mean. So like it's a situation to where learning to protect your heart and doing it in a healthy fashion, I think is a good thing before you start jumping into anything new. I can't hear you.
I was saying that's very good. I'm sorry, I muted myself.
Oh,
sorry. That was a really good point. This is going to be my last question. If you had the chance to speak to your younger self before life happened, before trauma, before that 5-year-old experience began and continued throughout your life, what's something Tara would tell 4-year-old Tara about her?
I would tell her that she is loved and that she's going to love very deeply. I would teach her some about protecting her heart and that not everybody is safe. But also there are a lot of wonderful people in the world. So teaching that balance. I would tell her that she is uniquely created. She doesn't have to compare herself to other people, talk like other people, act like other people, that we go through different things and we are created in certain ways because we have purpose, and all of that is tied to our purpose. So if I just continue to grow and continue to learn the things about myself and what my passions and dreams are, that everything's going to work out okay. And then just teaching how to take the time to heal when somebody has hurt you, so that you can embark on your next situation in a healed state, so you can thoroughly enjoy what is ahead of you.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So rich, so rich, so rich. Before we go, I do want people to know a little bit about your upcomingness. So me and Tara got the opportunity to work together. I'm a graphic designer here in Columbus, and so I was able to be commissioned to work with Miss Tara on her new website and pushing her new brand. And so I want you to talk really quickly about your new book and how people can support you with that. And then we will wrap up here in just a few moments.
Okay, and just a side note, Amber is your person for this stuff. She did amazingly well on my website, brand, logo, all of that. So
Thank
just a
you.
side plug. My book is upcoming. It's going to be soon. It's with the publisher currently. It is my story and also gets into some of the techniques and information and resources and things like that that would be helpful for those who are going through a hard situation. So I'm excited about getting that out there, and you're able to check out my website, and that includes information about my book at yetstillistand.com. And so all of the information is on there.
Awesome. She's doing phenomenal work. Get behind her. She has a publishing goal. And so I am shamelessly plugging back to Miss Alston. If you haven't already, check out her website. And every dollar, every joint supplies. It always works that way. So Marriage to Real Talk is all about community. So do check out Yet Still I Stand. I want to say on behalf of Marriage to Real Talk, thank you not only for being here, but she's going to be one of our new contributors, guys, that's going to come in and give us some insight from these different angles. So if you enjoyed today, please tap into our community, which is on Facebook currently. It's a community, private community group. And we just asked you to come on in. This was so rich. There's so many nuggets. There's probably 2 more books you can make outside of the one that you're doing right now. So I just want to say thank you again. I want to ask more questions, but we are over 40 minutes now, and I want you to get back to the rest of your day. So thank you so much again for being here. And I'll just pop up here real quick to say, Real Talk community, support, support, support. If you are watching the replay, we do watch our feeds for the most part. Our notifications do ring. So if you have questions, thoughts, or other things you like to learn about Miss Tara, or even get insight from some of the things that she shared today, she is a wealth of knowledge. And with her new platform, Yet Still I Stand, she's here to help you. So I want to encourage anyone who's going through any abusive situation. She talked about that secrecy, the place of secrecy. She's a safe place. Her resource is a safe place. Real Talk is a safe place. So if you need help, get help is all that we're saying. And so before we close out, I want to let you know that Marriage to Real Talk, it's all about relationship conversations with inspiration. So continue to tap in. Tara, I want to say thank you again so much for being a part today. And this was really, 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 really good. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I was excited to be on.
Likewise. Well, Marriage Real Talk community, thank you so much. We will see you again real, real soon. Have a great evening.
Good night.